Good morning. I call to order the June item-specific special meeting of the University of Minnesota Board of Regents. Thank you for those joining us in the boardroom and live stream today. Before we turn to our agenda, I'll note that our 4 action items before the board today were reviewed by the Finance and Operations Committee at the June meeting, and no changes have been made. So with that, our first item of business today is to act on the President's recommended fiscal year 2027 annual capital improvement budget. Before I invite a motion, I will turn it over to Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations, Greg Goldman, to tee up this item. Executive Vice President Goldman, please proceed.
Thank you, Chair Hips and members of the board. We return today seeking final action on the fiscal year 2027 capital improvement budget. The materials have not changed since you reviewed them last time. The proposal before you today is the approval of an annual capital budget reflecting total funding of $282.9 million, which is comprised of $40 million in state HEPR funding for asset preservation, $35 million in state funding for the St. Paul Campus Center, $130.2 million for university-funded projects, and $77.7 million allocated to university-funded repair and replacement. When we reviewed this item on June 11th, we discussed how this budget serves as a disciplined, highly strategic response to historic underinvestment in our infrastructure and is fully aligned with our Elevate Extraordinary 2030 roadmap. During the discussion, we appreciated the board's engagement of these critical investments, and we share your excitement regarding the projects, including the construction of a modern St. Paul Campus Center coming down the pipeline. Through careful fiscal discipline, legislative advocacy, and the strategic setting aside of capital funds, we are able to maintain momentum on high priority projects like the Washington Avenue Bridge improvements and our Secure Classroom initiative. This budget ensures the university remains a world-class institution capable of attracting top talent while reasonably managing our footprints. And to Regent Turner's point from a few weeks ago, we're sure to set up tours of these new projects as they move forward. With that, Vice President Alice Robert Davis and I are happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair Hipsch.
Okay, thank you, Vice President Goldman. Before we turn to discussion, is there a motion to approve the resolution related to the fiscal year 2027 annual capital improvement budget?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Motion passes. Okay, our next item is to act on the President's recommended fiscal year 2027 annual operating budget. First, let me extend on behalf of my colleagues our thanks to everyone who submitted comments on the operating budget. That input was tremendously valuable as we consider this proposed operating budget. President Cunningham and Executive Vice President Goldman, would you like to introduce this item?
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. I want to begin by thanking the entire University of Minnesota community for its feedback. I have reviewed, read, listened, as has my team, intently over the past few weeks to input on the budget from faculty, staff, students, and regents. Prioritizing is difficult but critically important in the current climate. I remain grateful to the chancellors, deans, department chairs, our administrators, leaders, faculty, and staff who are making difficult decisions to lead us to this budget we present today, which is balanced. They've identified our strongest opportunities to live into our land-grant mission, implement our Elevate 2030 Extraordinary Strategic Roadmap, and serve in Minnesota. This is a difficult budgeting year. It's a time of massive disruption in higher education, and as a wise stakeholder told me this week, in a time of massive disruption, the status quo is not available to us. However, through rigor, discipline, and holding true to our values, I'm confident that we can and will navigate the financial headwinds of our university and all higher education are facing. As we address rising costs and decreasing public investment and decreasing purchasing power, we must make deliberate choices to prioritize student access, fairly compensate faculty and staff, and focus resources where they can do the most good. Our proposed FY27 operating budget is balanced. It addresses these challenges to the best that we can and protects our priorities. The budget before you today is a forward-thinking solution that reflects our land-grant mission, our values, and preserves and strengthens our essential role as a vital economic engine for Minnesota. The university is proposing a 3.8 tuition increase. We remain committed to being accessible for students at all income levels and investing in our talented faculty and staff by offering fair and competitive compensation. While the financial pressures we're facing require us to think differently, what remains unchanged is our deep commitment to Minnesota. We will continue to serve as the state's economic engine, serving all 87 counties. We're meeting the needs of industry by launching our AI hub and will drive innovation in agriculture, clean energy, and environmental research. We will elevate health and healthcare across Minnesota by expanding training here in the Twin Cities, but also in Rochester, St. Cloud, and through new physician residency programs in Staples and Grand Rapids. And we're increasing our undergraduate footprint in sectors of the economy to meet the needs of Minnesota's workforce. The University of Minnesota is strong and getting stronger, and this budget will help the state and the region move forward. 70% of our undergraduates stay in Minnesota after they graduate, and our alumni generate nearly $66 billion in annual economic impact across the state. Though these headwinds, both locally and nationally, are challenging, the budget we've proposed will allow the university to focus our resources on programs and investments most essential to our core mission. With that context, I now turn it over to Executive Vice President Goldman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Chair Hipsch, I have no more comments to add at this point. We're happy to take questions.
Thank you. Before we turn to discussion, is there a motion to approve the resolution related to the fiscal year 2027 annual operating budget?
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it is moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Go ahead, sir.
I was very glad to have the opportunity to meet with the EVP and of Finance and the Provost to discuss budget issues. I'm obviously new to this, and the budget was well underway to being formulated before I was at this horseshoe. I just want to make the point that I appreciate the effort that was made to sort of go above and beyond. And my hope would be that we have periodic insight into how the process is, I take it it's beginning about now for next year, how that's happening, what the decision points are. I think that it would be useful. My own level of comfort a year from now, I hope, would be much greater than my level today. I mean, I think I've done an adequate job of trying to take a look at it, and I've been briefed by two people to really know what they're talking about. Next year, I want to know a lot more.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Go ahead, Regent.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. I would echo Regent Hines, and I look forward to being more deeply kind of immersed in this going forward. I will say I really appreciate the fact that we were able to get tuition below 4%. I also appreciate the immense amount of input that I received, and I think most regents received the same input from our stakeholders, especially our students, and a lot of faculty with very thoughtful and concerning emails. And I will be voting in favor of the budget today. My concern going forward is that, and I think we can't hide the fact that it's probably not getting better. So more hard decisions going forward. So I appreciate, again, the feedback, especially from the faculty on some of the very thoughtful analysis. And we've got work to do to figure out how to counterbalance the cuts going forward. We've got to figure that out, but it's not going to get better. So
Thanks, Regent.
not a happy note.
Regent Colley.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to start by appreciating the fact that we worked to incorporate last year I had said that I really wanted to see contingent faculty represented in the budget. And I'm very happy to say that there has been some work to do that. But on the other hand, what we've seen this year is millions of dollars in contract spending, not tightening the belt on administrative salaries, and a lot of, I think, other things that we can do better. And one of the things that I've learned about this budgeting process over the years that I've been on this board is that that the structure of the process isn't as transparent as I'd like it to be for Regents. And so I continue to have misgivings about the way that we're allocating our funds and the way that we're writing our budget. So thank you.
Thank you, Regent Colley. Regent Verhalen.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. So I want to add some additional perspective to this difficult decision that we're asked to make every year as Regents. This is probably one of my least favorite decisions to make, just because it is a situation where not everyone will be happy with the outcome. But one thing I've learned in my years here is that we really have three levers when it comes to budgeting. We have our tuition, we have our state funding, and we have budget modifications. That doesn't give us a lot of opportunity. Now, when I look at this budget, we could have moved forward with a 6.5% tuition increase without budget modifications. But in a climate where inflation is currently over 4%, asking each student to take on what is not an insignificant burden individually is asking a lot. We could have also held pay flat, but that would have been asking each employee to take on what is not an insignificant burden individually. So while no one wants to order or decide that it's necessary to make modifications to our existing budgets, that tough decisions have to be made on where money is spent, those decisions, the way we're leaving them, are left to the colleges, the departments, and the various units to meet and develop creative solutions and solve for those requests. We are not telling anyone in this university community how to get to those numbers. We are telling them that where they need to arrive while we continue to prioritize our workforce. I also want to note that while I wasn't here in the room for the public forum earlier this month, I was online listening and observing. Also, I've read every comment that was submitted to this board, including those from our shout out to staff, very thoughtfully created portal that allows for comment and engagement. I want to address a few of the things that I've heard and read over the last few weeks. First, every regent at this table gets paid $0 for this role. In fact, I can speak for myself and say that this role costs me money on an annual basis. It requires time away from my family, it requires time away from my work, it requires time away from friends. But that is all time that I am willing to do to provide my perspectives and services to this university and the state. So when I hear or read that in making any budget decision, we are giving ourselves raises, any percentage of $0 is still $0. Second, I've heard a lot about transparency and requests for transparency in the process. And I want to be really clear before I make the next statement, which is there is always room for improvement. But this process is far from opaque. We are not sitting in a room somewhere dreaming up the budget and then just show up in June. We discuss aspects of our budget or receive updates on what our team is observing with respect to the budget at every board meeting. In fact, several years ago, we requested changes to the way in which our budgeting teams present to this board throughout the year to make sure we are pacing with what we are seeing, how our budgeting process worked, how closely we're following it, et cetera. We talk about the budget and its development here in the open. Our finance team and our president are out meeting with different groups within our shared governance throughout the year. And it's important to note that we as Regents get the budget, nearly at the same time the public receives it every year. but that's by design. We've developed a process that allows us to receive community feedback and for us to ask questions, then weeks later we vote on it. Also, despite critiques that our faculty have been left out of decisions on how their college addressed budget modifications this year and worry about what might happen next year, further inquiry on my part has actually demonstrated that deans have held town halls. They have engaged faculty along the way. Some have even created committees within their colleges' units to work on these issues and identify where changes can be made. And in the case of CLA, where we received lots of comments, we did receive confirmation that no classes were canceled, despite what had been said. Further, as to other comments about cuts or eliminations, context is also critically important. As questions were asked and information was gathered, many of the items that have been stated as eliminated or will be eliminated typically tied to decisions actually made in prior years and were decisions based on engagement, not on budget. For example, claims that budget modifications in this last year have led to groups across campus no longer meeting in person weren't necessarily due to budget cuts. In many instances were actually due to low turnout of the in-person meetings previously and decisions by those in charge to move them virtually to get better attendance. Finally, I want to address the comments about consulting services at the university. When looking at that line item in our budget, it can't be looked at in isolation. It is a large line item when you look at it in isolation. We need to remember that that amount is less than 2.5% of our total annual budget. But it also includes a wide range of services, including research compliance, clinical laboratory services, audit services, construction project management and institutional review board reviews, as well as many other things. Also, a lot of commenters have commented on the costs of the PEAK initiative. And looking at that one alone, we need to remember that a lot of those costs were offset by philanthropy. We cannot look solely at the expenses of the budget, but we need to look at how the expense is funded and what that expense actually supports as far as the university's mission. Further, I will note that the budgeted amount for 2027 is actually 20% below our 5-year high, which occurred before our current president and many of our administrators were here. The 2027 amount is back in line with what the university spent in fiscal year 2023. However, Regent oversight and consulting agreements is worth further discussion. So, as chair of the Governance and Policy Committee, I am working with board leadership to bring this to the committee this next year for further discussion and evaluation. Finally, I want to reemphasize a point that Chair Hipsch made in our last meeting, and it ties back to the presentation we received. 10 years ago, 26% of our state budget went to health and human services, with 43% going to K-12 education and 9% going to higher education. Our state now spends 36% of the budget on health and human services, 37% to early childhood to 12 education, which is a broader scope than was funded 10 years ago, and only 6% to all higher education. Our state needs to decide whether a 10% increase in health and human services with a 6% decrease in education before a child even reaches 12th grade and a 3% decrease in higher education spending is right for this state. In fact, over the last 10 years, while other states, like Mississippi, for example, are climbing the charts in all public school education in their state, Minnesota has dropped from the top 10 to the 20s. Some studies even note that in just 5 years, Minnesota has plummeted from number 7 to number 21. And I find that very troubling, but this budget is a piece of that story. Thank you, Chair Hipsch, for the time.
Thank you for your well orchestrated comments. Are there any other discussions? Are there any other discussions? I just want to point out, I want to give my thanks to the Budget Director and Executive Vice President Goldman. I mean, there is a lot of information in the packets over the year. I mean, and if you really read it, like I'm a numbers geek, so I read it all, so. But I mean, it's like, I've been on a lot of boards, we all have, and one thing this is common, no matter if you're on a church council or the Board of Regents of the University of Minnesota, there's never enough money, and it's always, we're always faced with making hard decisions, and I just want to leave it at that, and appreciate the work of this board and the president and the staff, so I think we're ready to vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign?
No.
Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Our next item is to act on the resolution authorize the use of new market tax credit to fund the cost of constructing the new community university healthcare center. Before we get a motion on the floor, I'll invite Executive Vice President to share some remarks. Executive Vice President Goldman.
Thank you, Chair Hips, members of the board. This item before you today is for action on the resolution authorizing the initiative to use new market tax credits to fund the construction of the new Community University Healthcare Center, or CUC. As we discussed during the review session, CUC plays an indispensable role as a federally funded, qualified health center, delivering critical care to the community while acting as a prime clinical training ground for our health science students. During the last meeting, President Cunningham and members of the board rightfully praised the creative out-of-box thinking by our finance teams for utilizing this complex federal mechanism to replace a portion of the university funds originally earmarked for the project. I assure you that our teams carry the mindset of finding creative solutions to complex solutions into work in all that we do. While the new market tax credits are highly specific to projects like CUC, we remain entirely committed to looking at every creative, non-traditional financing structure available to maximize our institutional capacity and to manage risk within our tolerances. I will note that yesterday, the Debt Management Advisory Committee met and reviewed this proposal. The committee was highly supportive of the approach, including one of the members who has used the new market tax credit financing multiple times for various municipal projects in the Twin Cities and strongly encouraged and endorsed our approach. This structure has been rigorously vetted to ensure all obligations align with our long-term debt capacity. I want to thank Vice President Mike Volna and the board for leaning into this opportunity and supporting it. Vice President Volna and I stand ready for any questions.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the resolution related to the financing for Community University Healthcare Center?
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
And a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Oh, Regent Wheeler.
I just want to say again, I just so appreciate the look and the mechanism by which we fund this just incredible asset and the creativity involved that preserves dollars for other mission-oriented purposes at the university. CUC is a special gem. Those of us who have trained there, including me, know that there are lessons learned there that you never forget in life. And I know our students benefit from that, and I certainly know the community benefits from it greatly to have that access point for some people who have actually trouble with access oftentimes. So that you found this creative financial solution that helps build us a new and growing center there and do it while preserving capital for other projects, I think is just remarkable and should be congratulated for that. So thank you and the team.
Regent Lugar.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. I would second what Regent Wheeler said, but I will just add that I practiced law early in my career and was so proud of the firm that I was at and our pro bono services. And when the clinic opened, our firm started providing pro bono legal services there. So it's a full circle moment for me to see the firm is still providing those services. So in addition to the creative financing and the medical attention, the clients and the patients are also receiving pro bono legal services.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. The motion is approved. Okay, the next, fourth item is to act on real estate transaction for the Twin Cities campus, the sale of the Les Bolstead Golf Course. I'll note that Regent Bergstrom is recusing himself from consideration of this item. Before I ask for a motion, Executive Vice President Goldman, would you frame up this discussion?
Thank you, Chair Hips and members of the board. Today, we bring forward for action the real estate transaction for the sale of Les Bolstead Golf Course for $30.5 million. The question before us today was never whether the Les Bolstead Golf Course was valued. We know it holds generations of deep memories for our cross-country runners, skiers, golfers, and neighbors. The real question is whether the university can and should justify continuing dedicated, limited public resources towards a non-core mission activity. After extensive consideration, we're grounded by our responsibility as Minnesota's public land-grant university to prioritize our resources towards student success, research, and service to the state. Let me be direct and clear. The decision to initiate a sale was not made quickly or lightly. It reflects nearly 14 years of exhaustive study, analysis, and repeated efforts to identify viable alternatives to keep operating the course. In 2012 and 2016, university-led task forces evaluated restructuring and full reconstruction, showing a massive potential capital investment was needed, no funds available at the time. In 2018 and 19, the university issued a public RFP exploring a public-private partnership for a long-term lease and outside management of the course. No viable partner met our criteria. In 2021, a combined year-round operations center was explored, which again required significant capital that the university did not have. Finally, in 2025, consistent with policy, the university officially offered the property to the state of Minnesota, Remsen County, and the city of Falcon Heights to keep it in public ownership for recreational or green space use. It is important to note not one government entity expressed interest in acquiring the site. The reality we must face head-on today as a board and as a university community is that the course is up against a financial cliff. While the day-to-day operations are currently covered, the facility faces well over $10 million in capital needs for which there is zero identified funds available. The course carries an overall legacy deficit of almost $300,000. If the course were operational, it would require an additional $80,000 annually just to replace failing motors and operating equipment. The 50-year-old irrigation system is at imminent risk of total failure. If it were to break while the course was operational, the course would close immediately and replacing it would cost over $3.2 million. The historic clubhouse has been condemned and closed since 2011 due to severe structural and safety hazards. A replacement facility will cost at least $7 to $10 million. I want to emphasize how deeply we coordinated with the city of Falcon Heights throughout the entire sale process to ensure the transaction respected the local community. The university's RFP process found developers to Falcon Heights guiding principles as a core selection criteria. The city's framework places a strong value on expanding a diverse mix of housing forms, including apartments, townhomes, and smaller single-family homes, expressly designed to meet the needs of residents at varying income levels and life stages, which directly allows for the integration of affordable, senior, and missing middle housing addresses to regional housing crisis. The university has coordinated with Falcon Heights throughout the entire RFP process. We held many public meetings and participated in many more that were hosted by Falcon Heights to ensure the developers' plan aligned with local community goals. The city is already in the process of forming a community advisory committee and a technical advisory committee to shape this project. Once the buyer is formally approved, the city will entirely drive the environmental reviews and entitlement process, with university staff continuing to provide background information and support as needed. By approving the sale today, we unlock desperately needed revenue that will support this university for decades to come through two core commitments. First, the net proceeds will be entirely directed into a quasi-endowment dedicated to supporting and upgrading the St. Paul campus. University forecasting indicates this fund will generate an additional reoccurring $1.6 million annually in early years, growing to approximately $2 million annually in later years as the corpus of the endowment grows, targeted towards the so much very needed investments in the St. Paul campus. It's important to note, even after 20 years of continuous distribution, the fund will maintain a principal balance of roughly $65 million and $125 million at 40 years, yielding a total cumulative impact to the university of more than $200 million. Second, Gopher Athletics remains fully committed to our Division I golf teams. The John W. Mootley Golf Facility and outdoor short game training areas are excluded from the sale and remain under university ownership. We're also establishing a $1 million philanthropic matching program directly from the proceeds to secure long-term operational and facility support for both of our golf programs. The sale strictly aligns with the four core principles of the board's real estate and facilities policy. It supports our core mission, executes the board's approved 2021 campus plan, which designated this area as an opportunity for disposition, and it eliminates massive financial liability and positively impacts our neighbors. We have evaluated land banking, but based on the long-range development plans approved by this board, it clearly shows the university is not landlocked and does not need this land for future growth. Our capacity for long-term growth should be driven by dense, strategic redevelopment within our existing campus footprints, as seen with Fraser Hall and the proposed St. Paul campus center. Selling this parcel turns an underutilized, cost-heavy space into a vibrant neighborhood development directly fulfilling the local 2024 Lapinter Avenue Corridor Study goals in partnership with our host community, the city of Falcon Heights. Following a transparent, competitive, and highly structured process represents the most responsible path forward to steward the public asset and secure the university's financial future. Given our current fiscal landscape, this is a necessary step to secure our funds going forward. I want to thank Vice President Roberts Davis and Assistant Vice President Kruger for their exceptional care throughout this entire process. It was a process that was thoughtful, focused, and determined from the start. Vice President Roberts and I are happy to address any questions that you may have on this topic. Thank you, Chair Hipsch.
Thank you, Executive Vice President Goldman. Is there a motion to approve the sale of the Les Bolstead Golf Course property located at 2075 Larpenteur Avenue West, Falcon Heights?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on the real estate transaction?
Chair Hipsch, if I may.
Yeah, Regent Hines.
It strikes me that this could be a very positive moment for the university, for the Regents, and for the administration to do a few things. One would be to look to the resources within our university community for consultation about land use issues, about economic development issues, about all sorts of issues that I think university experts should be asked about. I very much would appreciate having their input. It seems to me also that I think that would be a very positive thing to begin. We've talked about that around this horseshoe before. a second thing is that all of us, I think, have received many communication from our neighbors. And I think we should respect their recent input. We should, if we put off this decision from today, irrevocable decision, I think, we're not going to threaten the project ultimately. I don't know how I would vote, but I think we should respect our neighbors. We would get credit for that. And I think there's a process that could be put in place for that. And I think also that this could be a good opportunity for the Regents and the administration to work together to try to understand what's happening here. My trepidation about this transaction is that I'm told that this is a unique asset of the university. It's obviously a big chunk of land right smack dab in the middle of a metropolitan area. I don't know what to do with it, but it seems to me that it's kind of a jewel, a flawed jewel, but a jewel. And that's what the community is telling me. And I don't want to vote today to irrevocably get rid of it. You know, I don't want to cause anybody heartburn, but you know, we sold a hospital at one point too, and that didn't work out so hot. So I think we should defer for some of these functions to take place. It needn't be long. Maybe we would have a unanimous board come the end of a process like that. I don't think it's going to cause any problem. We have 2 years worth of due diligence, do we not? In any event, so a month or 2, 3, 4 is not going to make any much difference to anybody for financing or any other purpose. So my request would be that we table it and come back and consider it in a month, in some months' time.
Thank you, Regent Hines. Is there any other discussion? Is there any other discussion? Regent Wheeler.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Hips, and thank you, Regent, as well as purporting. This obviously has tremendous value to the community, this asset. And we've heard a number of voices. I got a chance to sit down with Tim Percy, who organized the petition that has over 3,000 signatures. That said, this has been a question before this Board of Regents for over a decade. And when I think about what are we supposed to do as fiduciaries and what we can do to invest in the future of the state and its needs and its students, I don't think that actually holding on to this piece of property, which for all my questions has never been appeared in any strategic plan as having use in the future for the university, is wise. When we can invest up to $200 million in our core mission, including, supporting the golf team, which hasn't used it, by the way, men since 1999, I think, women since 2004, because it's inadequate for their purposes, which haven't used that for other purposes to support not only the golf team in the quasi-endowment, but also to support the St. Paul campus, which actually has its focus on environmental health and on agriculture. So I think that is the best use of this transaction. I do not think that kicking this can further down the road will benefit anybody, including our students in the future and the state in the future with the sale of this property. It pains me in some way. I know the property very, very well. I have very good friends who live right there. It pains me. I really appreciated all the comments and concerns that were raised, and everyone has been asked and answered by the team. And I appreciate that too. So I would not propose to delay this vote, and I will be voting in favor of the sale.
Regent Gully, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think, I've thought a lot about the golf course sale over the past weeks. We've been talking about it. I absolutely understand that it needs a huge amount of investment. And, I've recognize that we've gotten many, many, many communications from people who would like us to pause this, including messages from folks at the Falcon Heights City Council who have said that that they weren't expecting this to go as quickly as it did, and that they're not fully ready to put in place the development agreement that we're hoping will, or that we're anticipating will eventually happen here. So I also agree that we should take more time with this, and that that it's not ready. And I think, I appreciate all the work that's been done on it, and I appreciate all the thought that's been put into sort of what it would take to keep it the way that it is. And would probably, but I think we should take more time. Thank you.
Regent Verhalen.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. Much like Regents Wheeler and Johnson come at their decisions with a depth of medical knowledge, I come at this with a depth of dirt knowledge. There were a couple puns in there. We'll see if you caught them. I've spent nearly all my career in this space, primarily around addressing contaminated properties, working through thoughtful redevelopment in connection with state agencies like the Minnesota Department of Ag and the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, working with clients as they evaluate their options. And I've also sat here for nearly 6 years as we've discussed what should happen to various university properties. This board and EVP Goldman's team and his predecessors' teams spent years looking at what development on the St. Paul campus and the Minneapolis campus and our Duluth campus and on and on and on should look for. We've had report, summary, outreach to the community, conversations about perspectives within the university, outside the university, strategic planning, et cetera. And we sit here, and I know, Ms. Krieger and her team have worked with us many times over the years on some really challenging issues and some really challenging requests. And when I read through these materials, and really appreciate EVP Goldman's opening remarks today summarizing the history here, because there is a long history here. But based on this board's real estate principles that we established several years ago after a very long process, and based on our proposed planning for the St. Paul campus, university disposition of this property is consistent with those principles. Now, making this decision today doesn't mean Bobcats go in tomorrow and diggers go in tomorrow and redevelopment starts tomorrow, and that the developer shows up at City Hall with a permit tomorrow. These processes take a lot of time. So I can totally understand where the city of Falcon Heights would say, we aren't ready for a plan. Well, neither are we. Neither is the developer. The developer needs time to get in and complete their diligence. That's why there's a 1-year diligence period with 6-month extensions, up to 3 of them if I read correctly, where they need to get in there. They need to perform not only environmental analysis and environmental site assessments and phase 2 studies, they need to complete geotechnical studies, they need to complete wetland studies. The property there has been used as a man-made golf course for decades, which has altered some of the natural landscape in the area. And so all of this work is going to take time. That's just before this goes to the city council. At any point in time, the developer can back out. They could say, this doesn't fit our plans, we found something we didn't expect, et cetera. The other piece of this is once the plans go to the city for a proposal for this property, there will be all of the city's community engagement and feedback and requests and all of those opportunities for people to participate. when I've read through these comments, there are a number of instances where commenters have raised specific potential past sales or potential past opportunities. And EVP Goldman touched on this. We have limitations on how we dispose of property. And we actually have statutory and policy limitations on when it comes to disposing of property, agreeing to a private sale. If someone comes to us and says, we want to buy your property, we cannot just sell it to them except under very strict circumstances. And so when those opportunities have come up, our teams have looked at it and said, okay, is this the opportunity for a request for a proposal? Is this the opportunity for us to put it up for sale? And we weren't there yet. We hadn't finished the St. Paul plan. We hadn't finished our university real estate policies. We are there now. And the team went through the full RFP process. It included a 60-day response period. I can tell you that individuals who are interested in purchasing large pieces of property around the university are in the know on when those RFPs go out and make many phone calls on a regular basis to the real estate teams asking, is there anything new yet? But like I said, this doesn't make the development happen. What this does is allows this company to begin its process. And there are many steps along the way. Particularly, if this property is contaminated, the developer will need to decide what level of remediation they want to undergo, what that level of remediation actually means for what they can do to the property, what the agencies are agreeing to do and allow, and then what the city ends up allowing. So there are a lot of ifs, buts, and coconuts between here and a development actually happening at this property. But at this point in time, I am going to support the recommendation of our team and vote to move forward.
Thank you. Regent Ruth Johnson.
Thank you. I'll just add some brief comments here. So first of all, I love green spaces. I live them in the city. My husband used to live right in that area. We drove by there hundreds of times. It's great to come by and see that sort of thing in the city. So we like that part, but we have to deal with the reality of what's there as well. And Chair Hips, Regents for Hale, and I are starting our 6th year on the Board of Regents. We've talked about this many times. There have been every attempt to try to find good solutions for this. We wanted that, and we worked very hard on it. It's been 14 years, as mentioned, that this has been discussed and options are looked for. I think last year's decision by the state of Minnesota, Ramsey County, and the city of Falcon Heights that they're not doing anything tells us that those are not going to be options for us. I think after 14 years and all that we've done and all the conversations and everything we've looked at, we're not going to find anything different in the next 3 or 4 months. And I think also as we look at, again, the issue of where we're going to put our money, none of us, I believe, want to increase tuition or do anything else when we can use some asset like this to provide funding that'll be ongoing for a number of years. Instead, this is, I think, the right choice. So for many of these reasons, I'm joining the group that thinks that selling this property at this time. And the other thing is there is some jeopardy if we don't move forward because the buyer may back out in the meantime. Just one thing. So I'll be voting for the sale.
Thank you, Regent Johnson. I'll also be voting in favor for a lot of the same reasons and a couple different ones. Number one is, I was trying to figure out when it was purchased. It was like 1916 for agricultural purposes. And, since that time, we've got research stations all over the state that are doing a lot of this research. We don't need to do it in Minneapolis on a $30 million property, right? That's the first thing. And, secondly, we've underinvested in St. Paul for at least a generation, maybe 2 generations. And it's really exciting, and talking to people around the state that are in ag and ag processing and food production, they're really excited about what we're doing in St. Paul. They want to get it back to its glory. And this is a start of that. Secondly, I'm really excited about saving money on the golf course that we don't have to spend, and also having this $2 million roughly a year to keep forever to help support students and staff. But something that hasn't been said is that I'm also excited for the city of Falcon Heights, because they're gonna get to redevelop this land into all kinds of different types of housing, which we are in desperate need for around St. Paul campus. And that housing goes to support students and staff that need housing. And so to have that thing in housing this close to our campus is a really gonna help us a lot. So for those reasons, and I don't want to kick the can anymore, it's been going on for 3 presidents, and we just need to get this done. And it is painful, I can tell you that. Some of these decisions we make as a board aren't fun, but it has to be about mission. It has to be about highest and best use of dollars and money, especially in this economy that we live in right now. So, thank you. Regent Tad Johnson.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. I have a tremendous, sorry about that. I have a tremendous amount of empathy for a lot of the folks that wrote in. We have almost this exact same issue in Duluth. The Lester Park Golf Course, pretty close to where I grew up. It's a gigantic green space, hasn't been a golf course for several years, so the Duluth City Council is going to have to make a decision pretty soon on what's going to happen with that property, and I don't envy them, and I don't envy us, but we have to make a decision. So the folks that wrote in have a great deal of passion about this issue, and I also have a great deal of empathy for the regents who don't feel ready to vote on this. I don't think it was unreasonable for them to ask for additional time. But reading the room, I don't think there's the votes there to delay things. So anyway, I've had the advantage of hearing about this issue for the last 4 years that I've been on the board, and I have enough information to vote on it today. And I hope that some of the matters that have been brought up by Regent Hines and others, we can work into future discussions. But I'm ready to vote today on this matter. And anyway, thank you.
Okay, is there any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, the motion passes. Okay. That brings us to reports of committees. Let us begin with the report of the Audit and Compliance Committee. Regent Verheugen, please share your report with us.
Thanks, Chair Hipsch. The Audit and Compliance Committee acted on one item this month. The committee voted unanimously to recommend approval of the fiscal year 2027 internal audit plan as included in the committee's docket materials. Chair Hipsch, I move approval of the fiscal year 2027 internal audit plan.
Thank you, Regent Verheugen. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you, Regent Verheugen. Okay, go ahead, you got more.
Thank you, Chair Hipsch. In addition, Chief Auditor Galswick provided the committee with an internal audit update covering the past 4 months since our last meeting in February. He reported that 30% of high-risk audit items were resolved by university departments, which is an increase from 28% previously. Finally, the committee received 2 informational items: the required annual report on institutional risk and financial reports, and an engagement with the university's appointed independent external auditor requiring after-the-fact reporting. Thank you, Chair Hipsch. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you, Regent Verheugen. And for the Presidential Performance Review Committee, I will begin the report. The committee, which includes myself and Regents Ruth Johnson, Penny Wheeler, completed the work and is pleased to deliver a summary of our conclusions. Over the past 2 months, the committee solicited and reviewed feedback from dozens of individuals who have worked closely with President Cunningham over the last year. This includes all board members as well as senior leaders, faculty, staff, students, alumni, and community leaders.
The committee found that President Cunningham received strong support across nearly every leadership criterion. She has brought a real sense of energy to the work, as well as a willingness to take on complicated issues. One highlight that came through repeatedly was that the president assembled a talented and top-notch team that ensuring accountability is one of her strengths. We also heard appreciation that the president and her team are making difficult decisions and tackling long-standing problems. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention her work in bringing forward a new agreement with UMP and Fairview. Her perseverance and dedication to mission were apparent throughout the negotiation process.
Thank you, Regent Johnson. Regent Wheeler?
Yeah, thank you. Several of the dozens of commenters commented on how this has been, to use my own word, a thick time in higher education, and that President Cunningham has navigated very complex and difficult issues, be them politically or otherwise, during her time here, and is very much appreciated for that. Appreciation for the systemness view that you have taken for the university, which looks at the uniqueness of each of our campus assets, but also how to put the system better together for the students that participate in it, making it easier to transfer, looking at other ways to make it easy for them to make decisions about their support, let alone looking at enrollment strategies and alumni relations, which were also commented on very, very positively. In addition to that, there were several comments made about the strategic plan and the number of voices incorporated in the strategic plan and how that will set us looking forward to fill Minnesota's needs for decades in the future, Minnesota and beyond. So that was also highlighted in the comments. Last thing I'll mention is that the legislative relationships, the amount of time you spend everywhere, there again, I remember this comment from last year, people say it looks like you're in 3 places at one time. But the amount of time you spend everywhere, but especially, developing those legislative relationships has moved our positions forward, the university forward, and the understanding forward. So those are appreciated as well.
Thank you, Regent Wheeler. Overall, it has been a strong year. We are seeing a lot of initiatives in motion that have great potential for future success. Now she begins her 3rd year as our president. We know there will continue to be challenges facing the university. Right?
Really? Really?
That's no. Some unique to Minnesota and some shared by our peers in the Big Ten and AAU. The board is committed to President Cunningham and to supporting her continued growth as the leader of an institution that means so much to us individually and collectively. We look forward to seeing what more we can all achieve together in the coming years. That concludes the report of the Presidential Performance Review Committee and the reports of committees. Okay, there being no additional business before the board, this special meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Chair.